Okay, well, we're going to get started. Again, you have arrived and are attending the BRAIN webinar, From Harry Potter to Emergency IT Management, Mind Mapping and Visualizing Complex Worlds for Instant Understanding. I'd like to introduce to everyone Christopher David, Senior Director at Advanced Software Systems and former CTO from Arlington County, Virginia. Christopher, I'd like to thank you in advance on behalf of the BRAIN and all of our attendees for sharing your BRAIN with us and giving us a peek into your thoughts and procedures.
Shelley, thank you so much. It's a pleasure for me to be here, and I thank you and Matt and the rest of the Personal Brain team. I know we've been trying to set this up for a couple weeks now, so it's just an honor for me to be here. Share a glimpse of how I use Personal Brain in both my professional capacity as a senior director at Advanced Software Systems, as well as the work I did at Arlington County as the Chief Technology Officer there during the 9/11 incident and crisis. I hope that this is an informative session for folks. I will go through two brains. One is my professional brain, which I use every day. It encompasses probably 6 years worth of work that I've done on the brain, as well as a lot of other projects that I've been involved with, both personally and professionally. The second brain that I'll show you is a Harry Potter brain. That was actually the brainchild, no pun intended, of my daughter Christy, who is 10 going on probably 19. And I think between her and my wife and I, we've probably read all 7 Harry Potter books at least 4 or 5 times, or maybe that's just what she's done. So in any case, I will go ahead and launch into my brain. I hope that I'm able to share some tips and tricks. I've used the brain for probably 6 years now, and so I have a pretty good understanding of how it works and some of the cool things you can do with it. But as a corporate tool, that's really where my focus is going to be in terms of how you could use it maybe in your own lines of business and also the kinds of things that I'll show you. Hopefully you can leverage within your own brain field. So this is me. This is my contact information. If I know there'll probably be a number of questions. If you want to reach me directly, my email address is located here under the notes section. Real quick tip, if you double click on your main screen, you'll hide the notes pages and everything else. It's something that I do all the time. You also notice that I am on a Mac. One of the things that I really love about the brain is that it is a cross-platform tool. I used the Windows version for years, and then about 18 months ago, actually even not even that far ago, probably 6 months ago, I moved into the Mac version, and I can tell you that the integration between the two is very, very seamless. So we can talk a little bit more about that. But let me show you a couple of things right off the bat. So I have a reference section in my brain that I use all the time, and it's broken out into different areas. The personal area has a pretty strong people network, and I am going to resize it a little bit so you can see. And so my reference section, I'm not going to go through all this, and I'm actually laying my brain out for you all to see what actually goes on in my head. I just wanted to show you a couple of things. One of the things I like to do is I like to embed user guides. If for some reason I decided to take my iPod Nano apart, this is actually the user guide that I have downloaded to basically say, okay, here's an example of something. So on your screen, you should be seeing the preview. It's a nice way that I've found, because of the sort of compact nature of the brain, to embed large documents, even things like my MacBook Pro manual. Sort of really looking at, where is that manual? What do I do with it? So many of us keep PDF files, and I always find that if I embed them into my brain, they're really really quickly, I can get to them very quickly. I also have a number of different things here. I've got a pretty extensive people network, and this is something that you're able to do. You can actually link in your LinkedIn profile. So here, just as a quickie, I can launch my web browser from my brain and actually get into a LinkedIn profile of me in this case, but that's something else you can do. The individual list, a group of folks that I work with all the time and folks that I've come to know over the years, organizations. This is a much abbreviated list of both the individuals and the organizational list that I use, but I thought that it was important to show you some of the things that I keep in my reference section. You'll notice that the reference section is a jump link over to the side next to my main brain. I think that that's important because I often jump back and forth between that quite a bit. I'll start with work and personal and the test thought. This is something that I've done for today's webinar, and that is I've actually created a test thought where I can show you and demonstrate a number of different things that I do with the brain. Let me go into work because I wanted to focus a little bit about that. Assist is advanced software systems. It's where I work currently. We have a number of different practices, both in the commercial, federal, public safety, and state and local. One of the things I've done with Assist is I've pulled in all of our past performance qualifications. And so these are some PDFs that we use as collateral when we're talking to clients. And it's really terrific for me to be able to have that at basically my fingertips when I'm meeting with a client or when I'm talking to when I'm going through a presentation. Under the commercial space, one of the clients I'm working with now is Care First. I'm going to show you how quickly it is to add, how quickly we can add some things. So here, I'm actually going to add my assist team, the assist team that I work with. I'm just going to drag out to a child. And this is a tip and a trick that I hope that that you know about, but if not, I already know the names of the folks I'm going to add, and so I'm going to add them all in one shot. And the way I do that is I type the first person's name, Joe, I separate it with a semicolon, and then I go ahead and type the other folks that I work with on this project. And what it does is it saves you a little bit of time in terms of adding children, if you will, or thoughts to your brain. In this case, I've actually made a mistake. I'm going to, because I've added these people directly to Care First, I actually wanted to add those to something called the Assist Project Team. So I'm going to do that, and there are a couple of ways that you can move these folks. One way is to make that thought the primary thought. You can see with the rotating circle behind it. And then I can actually just move these folks. Vinay should actually be part of the team. Shima should be part of the team here. I'll show you in a little bit. Didn't want to create a child under Vijay, sorry. Joe and Mike. So you can see how I'm just moving the children from one area of my plex to another. In a little bit, I'll show you how to do multiples and show you how you can really maximize the linking part of that as best, using some of the features. I'm going to go back, and using the back button here, that sort of navigates me back, if you will. You also have the breadcrumb function, obviously, at the top there, which you can use. The thing I like about the brain, and often I call it the undiscovered killer app, is that there's so many different ways to get to similar places, and there are a lot of different ways to do things. Arlington County was where I came from. I spent 6.5 years there, and I wanted to talk a little bit about business continuity and how I use it in managing some of the things that we did in Arlington. So often I'm asked to speak with regards to emergency management or business continuity, and so I have a set of slides, and so you'll see here that this is going to launch a PowerPoint session. I'm a firm believer that relationships are the key. This is a picture of Jack Belcher, my CIO at Arlington, and I at one of our network operations centers. I'm not going to obviously go through these slides. You didn't come here to be PowerPointed to death. But just a couple of things that I wanted to highlight with regards to emergency management, and showing you a couple of different images from 9/11 and some of the places in Arlington, including a document which I'll talk about in just a bit, the After Action Report. For those of you that are into business continuity, emergency management, this is a terrific document to get. It basically was an after-action report that was commissioned by the county to really look at how the emergency was managed. Down here in the left-hand corner, when you work with emergency management and first responders, I mean, one of the things that you realize is that you can plan up to a certain point. But after a while, you realize that every incident is unique and that you have to plan accordingly. So this is the police department, Captain Hackney's first sketch down here of the ICS incident command assignments. And you can see we basically just took a piece of paper and started to lay it out. Well, take that and really bring it out, and this is actually the full photograph of the incident command center that we established at the Pentagon in the South parking lot. This is actually the logistics support team. It includes everything from McDonald's to Burger King to sleeping areas, lodging, and this is the life of a first responder and was the life of folks for a number of months after 9/11. A key thing that was important for us is that we wanted to bring technology to the field. So Arlington was recognized in 2007 for innovating the use of technology in emergency management. This is the team that with actually this vehicle, which you saw under a police flag, and basically the police. We basically took the police vehicle and recast it into something known as the nation's first emergency technology support unit. From the after-action report, one of the recommendations was that we wanted to bring more technology to the field, and so we re-outfitted that vehicle and created something called the ETSU, something we're really proud of. The after-action report that I mentioned is also embedded in my brain. It's a very long document. It's 215 pages, but I find that it's really important for me to go back to different documents and collateral as I look at different things, different emergencies that we might be dealing with at the time. You'll see and notice that I embed a lot of documents. And what I mean by that is that I actually take the document and I attach them, then I also embed them directly into my personal brain. And I'll show you in a bit of how I do that. In fact, I'll do it right now. So within emergency operations, corporate communications is obviously very important. It's important that folks make a plan and they have personal preparedness. Well, in Arlington, we have a couple of really nice plans. And so I'm going to just create a child, double-click so you can actually see the, I'm going to double-click so you actually see where my property screen is. Make a plan. I'm going to add an attachment, and I'm going to link to a file that's on my desktop. In this case, it is the user manual for emergency management, and it is here. Preparedness plan. Use my scrolling just a bit. This is actually a PDF for basically our slogan is Be Ready, Make a Plan. We have that on our website, but also I wanted to embed it here. So you saw how I attached it. Now here's how I embed it. Down here on the properties attachments, what you do is you control-click, move the file into the brain. What it does is it takes it from my desktop and adds it into the files of my brain. So at this point, all I do is zip the whole thing, and I have this document with me. In addition, I also want to attach the Spanish version of this. In emergency management, it's important that you're really diverse in terms of your communication, so I just attached the Spanish version of that. You'll see there's an arrow here. This file is not embedded in the brain. You can also see the location of the file on this end. I'm going to, again, control-click, move the file into the brain, and now both of those are embedded within the brain itself. So that's a quickie on how you put the attachments in. Within corporate communications, this is a place where you can really embed a lot of your different documents and really increase the utility of some of the communication strategies that you might have. Under business continuity, obviously related to emergency operations, before I go there, I wanted to just show you a little bit about the Emergency Operations Center and how we are organized. We follow the national structure, which is the Emergency Support Function structure. These are the ESFs, or Emergency Support Functions. We also have the Incident Command System. This is a great tool to sort of explain to people, well, let's say Florida, it would be tropical storms, hurricanes. I wouldn't really prepare for a blizzard. Well, that makes sense, but we've really evolved to the point where you want to manage according to just basically the premise that you don't have access. So it really doesn't matter at this point what the reasons why, but really think about what you need to move forward. So I use the personal brain to really track a pet project of mine is the private-public partnership. And a couple of things to keep in mind as we do this, I have here, it's a group out of the University of Michigan that basically has developed a set of programs where they bring together the private and public groups. And so if you want to know more about that, this is the central thought. I'm going to go out to the web and search. And I'm just going to take off the private-public partnership, and I'm just going to search out, and you will find this is the Critical Incident book. This is the book that basically takes everything from the workshops and the different programs from the University of Michigan, and it's summarized in a PDF. I really like this. I'm going to bring it into my brain. I do it. I just save the document to my desktop. In this case, I've actually already done that, so I'm just going to cancel this out. And then I can just attach this directly into the brain just as an attachment. Double click, and I can just add this just like I did with the other files I just showed you. Okay. Again, for me, I like to embed the file into my brain, so now I actually have those in my brain. Best practices and lessons learned. This is a great way to use the brain from the standpoint of really understanding what types of things are being done across the country, especially with regards to private-public partnerships. And then here's something I promised that I would do, is show you the use of sort of multiple selects. So at the April 1st workshop, we had a number of attendee organizations. These were all the folks that, actually an abbreviated list of some of the folks that attended it. And what I want to do is, I showed you earlier in my reference part, that I actually had an organizational database, if you will, an organizational structure. Now, all of these organizations are not part of that, so I want to take all of these and reattach them and actually link them directly to that organization piece. And so let me walk you through the multiple select process and how that works. So on the Apple, it's Command, the Command key. I'm going to actually click on the child gate. As you know, each thought has a parent gate, a jump gate, and a child gate. So the child gate, I'm going to click on that, and you'll see on the left-hand side that is actually activated my select. You can see I call it the running ants, sort of cabaret-looking thing. And now I want to navigate. I want to navigate to my organization page. But instead of actually just navigating sort of through the back and going through the breadcrumbs, I'm going to use the search. And the search is very powerful in the brain. So I'm just going to type in organization, and you'll see right off the bat, things just start to show up, regardless of where they show up in the search screen. You'll see that the search is very powerful. So I'm going to navigate to organizations. Now I want to link all of these in my selection to the organizations, right? At the same time, I want to retain that they're attending organizations, because that's important, because I want to know, if I'm dealing with a disaster, that, you know, who has been involved with some of that partnerships. Control-click under the selection page, and now you have a number of different options, and this is very powerful. You can copy the selected thoughts. I want to add the organizations to the selection. That is, actually take this and move it over here. Nah, that's not what I wanted to do. I actually want to link the selection as children of the organizations. And so I do that, and magic, brain magic, you'll see that now what I've done is I've actually added all of those. That select tool is incredibly powerful. For those of you that are into cherry picking, if you command select, you can actually cherry pick individual ones out there, and it also works on the unselect process. If I selected all of them and said, actually I want them all except for this, this, and this, I can deselect by using that cherry picking practice. Really, really nice way to use that. I'll give you a real-world scenario. We had an incident at the airport, and I needed to know, basically, a connection at the airport. So all I had, let's say all I had was this. I happen to know that Leadership Arlington is a very cool organization in Arlington that represents over 400 different other organizations. So I've tried to show a little bit about that here. But I happen to know that Betsy Friend, the president and CEO of Leadership Arlington, was at that, and it was an attendee organization. Through Betsy, I know she's connected to the Washington Airports Authority. And so in this case, Jim Bennett, who's the president and CEO of WAA, you know, we could reach his folks to basically say, look, there's an incident at the airport that we need to make sure we're hooked into, and so what types of things should we be able to do. So you can see, as from a contact perspective, from an organization's perspective, that it's really a tremendous tool with regards to managing some pretty complex information. That is a good sort of overview of the sort of work aspects of that. From the standpoint of emergency operations, there are just a couple of other things I wanted to mention. I've already said that I could embed different types of attachments. I also, in my test structure, this is a test thought. This is some of the neat things you can do when you actually create tests. Is I can take just play with this. You know, there's no harm done if I want to move these parents down to be children, or in most cases, the children to be parents, or if I want to reconnect some things. It's a really nice way to just sort of play with things and really do some fun things with it. Also, under applications, you can launch. I can launch virtually any of the applications I have here. Excel, Entourage, iPhoto, iTunes, and there's a lot of neat things that are possible with that. Essentially, you could make this your primary interface for your desktop. I do that here and there, but for the most part, I sort of go back and forth between some of the different areas. A couple other things with regards to business continuity I just wanted to mention. The personal brain is really terrific. I mean, I do call it my undiscovered killer application for business continuity. There's a couple reasons why I say that. One is this whole issue of brain zipping. The fact is that I can take my entire brain, embedded applications and all, and I can zip them up. And just FYI, a nice thing that you can look at is the stats. This brain happens to have 1,600 thoughts. Wow, I don't know how to really how to really interpret that, whether that makes me kind of well thought of or not. But then a lot of links and a lot of activations. Basically, how many times have I clicked on different types of things? It also gives you a lot of nice stats with regards to how many file attachments. Obviously, the attachments are really what takes up the room. In addition, I know that when I brain zip this, which, just so you know, from a business continuity perspective, I do weekly. Sometimes I'll do it daily. In preparation for this webinar, I did it probably 3 times yesterday. And so you can create a brain zip. Basically what that does is it zips up your whole brain, and then now I can take it to a Windows machine or a Mac machine and sort of open it up and then be functional. You obviously need the personal brain software to do that. We also have other options in terms of exporting the whole thing over to simple HTML or an XML using the Brain EKP. So that's a really interesting thing to do. The other thing that I encourage folks to do is actually print this out. This is actually, let me show you a couple of things. You can rearrange your brain in a lot of different ways, and so these are a couple of different views. And what happens, as you will quickly see, depending on your bandwidth, you should start to see kind of a mess. You'll see that you can actually move a lot of this around and sort of function out. I like to project my brain using a data projector onto a very big screen. In fact, one of my interests is how I could use the brain in literally a billboard display function, because I think it's a great way to show relationships between things and the plexes. You obviously can print the plex to a regular desktop printer or even a wide format, and I think that that's a really terrific feature. You can see what it looks like. This is just capturing what's on my screen, but you can also do multi-page printing, which I think is really, really terrific as well. The other thing about printing the Plex is, don't forget, you can actually print this to PDF. And I can basically take my screen, zip it to PDF, mail it, save it in PDF, and then mail it. And on the Mac, I do this a lot. I actually save it to PDF to iPhoto. And what it does is it will actually just launch iPhoto and put it in as literally another picture. And really nice feature in terms of using it. I can't say enough about BrainZip. That's a really nice way, especially given the cross-functionality of things. And then, it really is a great tool from a business continuity perspective. So play with the views. I always find that to be one of the features people don't often play with. and I think that that's something that really makes a difference. There are also ways to personalize your brain, and if I can, I will go ahead and launch into my other brain that I wanted to show folks. And right now, I'll just show you a wallpaper change real quick. So I'm using the default theme, default blue, dark blue. I've used this one for years. But then I realized that, if I wanted to really distinguish what this brain looked like, why not take a picture of Notre Dame and make that the background? This is important for a couple of reasons. One is I work in a couple of different brains during the day. It's important that I realize just sort of visually what that brain is. You'll notice that I've reset my wallpaper here. You can also customize the colors and do some other things. But I also have to give credit to the personal brain folks, that these are really nice themes. The colors work well with regards to the thoughts and everything else, and I'll just reset that back to the dark blue. Got to see the Harry Potter world. Obviously centered around the books. Very, very high-res images that were taken off the websites to really highlight. The books I won't go into my Harry Potter soap opera and soapbox, but some of the things I wanted to show you here is in a couple of the books, actually all of the books now that I think about it, there are embedded multiple attachments. So I've got the American version of the book covers, but I also have embedded foreign versions of all the book covers, which I think is pretty fascinating when you see how the British portray the Goblet of Fire and how the Italians portray the Goblet of Fire. It's just a kind of interesting thing. The purpose of me creating this was that I really wanted to create a digital sort of biography and a digital history chronicling Harry Potter, because it's a phenomenon that I don't think we'll ever see ever again, and it's something that I really wanted to do with my daughter. And so you can see the utility of the tool. You really can do things pretty quickly with not too much effort. I mean, I think that the ease of use is really a key. So I'm going to take the opportunity at this point to show you a trick and a tip that I hope that you use. You'll notice here that it's known as the comma trick. But basically, these are all the books, 7, and I am, and I know this is completely wrong, but I'm actually going to add an 8th book. And I'm going to do that in just a bit, but I wanted to show you, under each book, you find the same 4 children. So characters, movie, plot, and setting. No matter which book you find, you click on, you're always going to find those same 4. Well, here's the challenge. The challenge is that if I just use the term characters, then that thought would actually show up under every single one of these books. That's not what I wanted. I wanted characters associated with Deathly Hallows. Here's how I do it. And let me just show you a different display of this. If I click on books, what I can do here is actually click on characters. And you'll see, just a second ago, that's not magic. It says characters here, but then when I click on it, it actually says characters, Chamber of Secrets. This is the comma trick. Let me show you how that works. So under books, I'm actually going to create Harry Potter 8. Now please, no hate mail, no, I mean, I'm not saying she's going to create another book, so if we can just sort of do that, I'm going to create Harry Potter book 8. Yes. Okay. Now, what I want is, I want characters underneath that. Actually, you know what I'm going to do, because that's going to be a little tough for me to deal with. I'm just going to call it to speed up some things, HP8. Okay? I want characters under HP8. So I'm going to create a child, and it's going to say characters, and I'm going to put a comma there. And what the comma is going to follow is the actual central thought that I've just created. And so what happens is that underneath the primary thought, what is in front of the comma is actually what you see. When you make that the primary thought, what's behind the comma is the full piece. I think that that's a really nice way to create thoughts that recur over your thought. Children that recur over your primary thought, and that you want to see over a couple of different ways. We can also do setting, the 8, and for those of you paying attention, I'm actually going to use the semicolon tool, the semicolon trick as well. So it's setting and character, setting, plot, comma, HP8, and last one is, I can't remember, so I'm just going to say, leave it, that, and you'll see that it's created both of those children with correct identifier. So that's the semicolon tool, the comma tool, coupled with the semicolon tool for those of you hardcore personal brain folks out there. A couple of other things with the personal brain site. Characters is a great piece. I never thought that I would actually have to create something where I had humans and non-humans. And my daughter and I often have long discussions whether or not, certain people are humans or certain people are adults. I've actually created the adult side. Let me just go into a couple of my folks that I really like. These are high-resolution images from MuggleNet and from a lot of different sites over the web. I think that that's a really fun thing to do. The other part of it, let's not forget that Minerva McGonagall is actually Maggie Smith. And I also like to find out, I'm a big people person, so I like to also track the movies that these actors are in. For those of you that are big Harry Potter fans, Imelda Staunton is Dolores Jane Umbridge. I love that picture. Imelda Staunton was in a number of different pictures. These are a couple. Sense and Sensibility. I haven't found another movie that has more Harry Potter people in it. So if those of you that are Harry Potter fans can email me your picks, that would be great. Alan Rickman is Snape. Again, these are actors, and so we actually go back. I'm actually more interested in their Harry Potter characters. Other parts of the Harry Potter world, spells, potions, online resources. There's a slew of resources out there. Obviously, you can go straight into the web from this. I've shown you a couple ways. One is from your dashboard here, click on the search screen. You can actually type in a resource. You can also drop and drag. My favorite way to add a resource is actually dropping and dragging. So let's just say I want to find out about Quidditch. I actually did this, and so I did a search on Quidditch, search out. This actually will bring me to, believe it or not, the Vassar Quidditch team. So I can actually take that from YouTube and embed it straight into my brain. And I do that by just taking this and dragging it straight into my brain, which used to be here. So then tonight when I go home and talk about Quidditch, I can say, well, the Vassar Quidditch team is losing 7-7. A couple of different things also with the Harry Potter brain. You'll notice really interesting use of graphics. This is a JPEG. I've walked you through how to change the graphics itself and sort of how to move things. I want to talk a little bit about thought types for the characters. So I'll focus on the humans. Now, a couple of things with Harry Potter that's interesting. One is that you have all of these characters associated with 4 different schools. So you can see that as I mouse over the different students, you'll see that there's text that actually follows what school they're in. For some of these folks, I'm not sure exactly where Katie Bell is, but Hermione Granger, obviously, a Gryffindor. So double-click. This is where you put in the text type. And so I've actually created a type called Gryffindor. A couple of things to remember. When you associate a type and you attach an icon to it, you're not able to attach, you can attach other things to it, in this case a picture, but what's going to show up is really the icon. So you just need to be aware that when you do multiple attachments, there is some priority over where the icons are. So I think that you just need to be clear of how you're doing that. Really easy to create types. I walked you through a little bit of that, well, we can go from there. Let me just look at a couple of other things I wanted to mention. I've walked you through multiple selects and relinking. Attaching PDFs, there's one thing I wanted to do. In my personal brain, I'm actually just moving back and forth between brains using these brain buttons. I love that because I can sort of navigate literally back and forth. Also, use your search tool. A lot of what I like to do is use search, and in my personal life, within this, one of my hobbies is on, maybe this is where the Harry Potter stuff comes on, but at Halloween every year, I am a roving vampire at Six Flags here in the Washington area. So I'm actually just going to add vampire, and there's a interesting picture that they took of me last season that I will add into this. Link that in. And then again, as you know, I'm big into moving the file into the brain. When you add icons, sometimes you just have to mouse over to refresh. So that's a picture of me as a vampire at Six Flags. And that way, you can see that, it's so easy to attach PDFs. I've showed you how to move files into the brain, selecting multiple spots. Let me just do that very quickly. Let's say for all of these, I'm going to unlink this applications because I want that to look up. These children, I want this one up here. I want this child down here. I want to create a specific thought type. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick one of these children, and I'm just going to go down here and actually create a new type. And I'm just going to say users, say yes, and I'm going to attach an icon to that. This is a really critical thing for me when I create thought types, because I want to make sure that visually I can distinguish one thought from another. Again, same thing, I'm going to control, click this, I want to move that icon into my brain flex. So you see that this is the thought type for this child. Going back, I want all these children to have the same type. Same thing, control click on the child's gait, that does the select. Here, command click to select, control click, and here I can set the thought type to users. That's it. Close your select bar, and these are actually that type, but again, I've got to mouse over them so that you can see the icon. So it's a nice way to really work through the thought type. The other thing that's really powerful is use your thought labels. So in this case, the way I managed the Harry Potter piece is that I created the thought type Gryffindor, but instead of an icon, I put a picture there, and under the label, I put in a label so that what happens when I mouse over, that shows up on that. I actually just did it on this child. I need to do it on the thought type. Okay? But that gives you a sense, a nice idea in terms of the kinds of things that you can do with the brain. I already talked about launching applications and printing the Plex, bridging between the different views of a Plex, which I think is a function that people don't use that often, but I find to be extremely powerful, especially when you're trying to show complex relationships between things. You obviously can expand this out to different levels, and then it can get very, very interesting looking. And my suggestion is you print this out to a wide format, or you just keep it clean. Another thing that I like to do, and I encourage folks to do, I started the brain doing some brainstorming, just looking for a good brainstorming tool. So often I like to set this as my screensaver. I basically say options and I wander. And what this does is it's randomly going out and picking different thoughts to make them sort of pop out a little bit more. And it'll actually go through a big chunk of the brain. And I'm always amazed as to how often I use that to basically create the associations. Last thing I just wanted to mention are some navigational things. So obviously the resizing, this cool looking thing in the middle that's sort of turning, has a resizing circle. You can sort of resize your Plex according to what your screen looks like. Also on the Mac, I've got a scroll button on my mouse that works as well, and it's a nice way to really custom. That's pretty much what I wanted to share. I'd love to answer questions or anything else that Shelley we might be able to do in the time we have remaining, and I'd also be happy to share anything else that that I've done with the brain itself.
Okay, great. Thanks, Christopher. That was great. We do have several. I'm going to jump back to the disaster recovery questions that we have earlier in our session, then we'll get into your the questions that popped up during your Harry Potter brain. First of all, just on a general note, Christopher, why is Personal Brain such a great tool for disaster recovery and business continuity as opposed to, say, using your files and folders? And how did you get started in creating a brain, and what advice would you give for any, say, IT manager or business project managers out there who actually want to start creating a business continuity plan in Personal Brain?
Wow, that's a great question. Okay, so let me just start with the way I started was that I actually started using Personal Brain when I was teaching at American University. I helped develop something called hypermedia computing, which we now know today as the web. But back then, hypermedia was the convergence of multimedia computing with hypertext. And so I was looking for a tool and came across Personal Brain and used it ever since. The way you start is you download the free version. I would ask people to buy the version, the pro version, because I think it gives you a lot more functionality. But I do think starting off with the free version is terrific. Windows or Mac. I also encourage folks who work in both platforms to use both, because I think that the licensing is really attractive, and also I think that you get the utility of the cross-platform. Just start with what you already know. The fact is that it's drop and drag. Just start to put things out, and then you will create the organization that means the most to you using the tool itself. Your first question also was, why do I think this one, what makes this interesting and unique in terms of a business continuity tool? I said it again, one of the things is, I do think it's an undiscovered tool, and here's why I really love it for business continuity. A couple of things. One is that it's self-contained. Again, if you embed your attachments and you do the brain zip, and for those in business continuity, you know that you do a double brain zip, and you take this and put it on your USB drive, and you put it to your online drive and your .NET drive or your mobile me drive or whatever. I put it on basically all my machines, and I have it on my USB. That's terrific because now it's portable. Cross-platform piece is really key. I love that I could put it on a Mac, put it on a PC, but I can also export the entire thing, if you will, to a website, and so that's really terrific. It's really easy to show the relationships between things, especially when you are managing a disaster that is incorporating a lot of folks that you, quite frankly, have never met. It's really easy to move things back and forth. It's also a really great way to keep key documents, like the after-action report, etc. The last thing that I wanted to mention, the reason why I like it so much, is that, one, it's a tool that you could use every single day. It's a tool that you could use in your business, in your personal life. I would encourage you, if you're new to it, that you do use it as much as you can, especially if you want to use it in business continuity. Because here's the deal. One of the things we discovered, and it seems obvious at this point, but it really wasn't, is that the worst time to introduce a new technology or any new tool is during a disaster. So I always think that one of the best practices you can adopt in a business continuity program is you use the tools every day. Because when you need them, providing there's the hardened architecture and that you've got the backups and all that, your tool is available to you. You really don't want to have to learn something new during a disaster. Some of that's unavoidable, but I've seen a lot of tools out there where they basically say, okay, you use this tool during an emergency. And it's like, no, that's not going to work for me because, I don't live 24/7 in an emergency. Some people do, but I hopefully don't. And you need a tool from a business continuity perspective that's going to be there for you. And it's going to be easy. I hope that answers your question, Sean.
It does, and that also answered, there were several questions from Lee Sherman and the like about how you found working cross-platform. It's great to see you presenting in the Mac today, so let me just dive a little deeper into that and ask you, so are you primarily on a Mac or PC, or so you're using the brain zip to move cross-platform? How does that work for you, and how do you work within your personal brain across your different machines, and what machines are you using to do that?
I work off of primarily a MacBook Pro, and I also have a PC laptop at home that I use, an old IBM ThinkPad. And I move back and forth weekly. I mean, I literally do that. There are some things that are different on the Mac version. Again, as you know, the Mac version is fairly new. So some of the features, for example, on the Windows version that aren't currently available on the Mac, and I encourage you to check out the online forums. In fact, one of the things that I use the Personal Brain for is to manage my Personal Brain account. And so here, I'm just going to navigate to Personal Brain. And I actually have a section under my reference where I can get direct access to things like the user guide, the online forums. So I would encourage you to really check out the online forums if you want to learn about the usage. On the Mac, on the Windows version, there's the dock feature, which basically enables you to take the whole thing and sort of dock it to your side, which I really like. I think on the Mac version there is no ESP, and for those of you that know a little bit more about that, maybe you could pipe in. But those are kind of minimal to me. I mean, the main utility in terms of the linkage, the ease of use, the attachments, that's completely transparent. I mean, and the big piece for me, especially for business continuity, are things like the attachments. I mean, if those did not carry over, I'd be sunk, because those are the kinds of things that I really need to.
Great. And Christopher, we had a question from Michael Singer about files, and it's this: when it comes to files, PDFs, etc., related to a single topic, do you add a thought for every attached file, or do you just attach them to a single thought?
It depends. I mean, sometimes, like, for example, under my reference section, I have user guides, and these are individual thoughts with single attachments, right? So it really depends on what you're comfortable with. Now, one thing I do is I actually create thought types for different, well, quite frankly, for different attachments. So in this case, everything you see with obviously an Acrobat icon is a thought type. It's basically a thought type icon, and that's important, because often what I'm looking for is I want to visually see kind of what my thoughts are. The other part of that is I didn't talk at all about reports, and I probably should have mentioned some of that. I mean, there's this whole idea, this reports function is very, very crucial. And that is one of the things that I found early on is I wanted to identify all the external attachments. And so this is one place where you can do that. So in this case, I can actually click on external files, and then now I can go through in 2 clicks. And providing the attachments are where I thought they were going to be, basically I can move these directly into my Plex. But the attachment piece is really, really important. That's really it.
Okay, great. And Christopher?
Yep.
Okay, there you were fading out a little bit on your sound. I don't know if the line dropped for just a 30 seconds or maybe a half a second there. So
I'm here.
Okay, great. Let me go on to the next question. There was a question from Lee about searching and how you found Personal Brain for searching large file attachments.
Wow. I don't know if I use the Personal Brain to actually search within the attachment. And so I personally use it really to navigate into my thoughts. I do know that there is the advanced search function, but I'm not the best person to ask that. I suspect that, I mean, if that's the case, that's a really cool thing. I mean, that you can basically attach something like the after action plan, which is a 218-page document, a 250-page document. If I could search within that, in this case, what's happening is that obviously it's being opened by the Mac, and so if I type in Ron Carlee, who is the county manager, obviously it goes straight into it. So I'm using the native Mac tool in terms of preview. Now, I believe there's a place where you can associate the attachment to an application, but I've always just done the straight PDF.
Right, and you know what, that's an interesting point. In terms of that, we do have, and to that question, two types of searches. We have the instant search, where of course you can move very quickly through thoughts, which is very powerful to shift context. And then of course we have the search button, which does let you search through those large attachments. So if you are a avid searcher and want to search through those files, just to answer your question, for the attendee, that is something that can be done as well. Christopher, we had a question again about organizing different pictures and images, and to show how you've done that. I don't know if you can go ahead and do that as well.
In terms of organizing?
I think the question was relating to how you got the images in your Harry Potter brain. You had a number of really wonderful images. Were those stored on your computer, or did you copy and paste those from the web?
We copied and pasted those from the web. So part of it, okay, so let me think of a creature that, so let me just walk you through how I do that. So for most of my humans, I've pretty much maximized a couple of those. Actually, this one's really interesting. The woman who is playing Narcissa Malfoy. This is interesting for the Harry Potter fans. Originally, Naomi Watts was supposed to play Naomi Malfoy. This is a picture of Naomi Watts. The way I would do that is make that the central thought, go to the web, search Naomi Watts, and then images. Oh, that scared me for a second there. But anyway, so you could do images. You could just basically say Naomi Watts images. Click on that. I tend to keep, medium or small. Let's pick a different one. And then Control-click, save that to your desktop. Save the image as. And then you could send it to JPEG. I tend to use PNG, but it really is that's kind of a personal preference. But we'll just leave it at JPEG for now. Save it, and that's make sure you know where you saved it to my desktop. So that's cool. And then I go back here, and then just click on Attach. Add the attachment, link to file. Where's Naomi? I should have paid attention to what I'm not going to waste time searching for it. But basically, you then take the file. I'll do this. I'll take a picture of our fire chief. No offense to my friend Ed Plogger. I take a picture of our fire chief. I've actually embedded it here. I'm going to get rid of this one because I don't want this to be too confusing. And then, again, I Control-click, and I move that into my brain. That's critical. And then come over. That's obviously not Naomi Watts. But that's actually Ed Plogger, the fire chief from Arlington during the 9/11. He's a good friend.
That's great. And obviously, we've had a lot of questions about your wallpapers and colors. I think a lot of the attendees are inspired by some of the backgrounds and colors. So one of the questions was from Michael about, can he change the font color independently of objects? So, and then just to add to that question, how did you create this wallpaper? There's also a question about where you got the wallpaper, but minimally, how can users go ahead and sort of capture their imagination with customization in the same way that you've done so wonderfully with your own Harry Potter brain?
Well, the wallpaper is, again, straight off the web. I mean, part of that is being very careful in terms of copyright and making sure that you're not, I'm not selling it, and I'm not, I'm also careful if someone's got a used watermark on it that I don't, try to pass it off as anything that I've done. Part of that also is, just need to search the web. I've given you my email address, so any of those particular questions with regards to where and how, I'm happy to share that. But also, I mentioned to Shelley about a week ago that my plan is to actually post my full Harry Potter brain onto a website that I will create. And I'm happy through the Personal Brain to sort of share that site. Right now, this brain is 14 megs, and so that's a little above the limit that I can post onto the Personal Brain site. But also, I have the same plan for my business continuity site. If folks are interested in that, my plan is to create a business continuity brain that I can post to the same personal website that I'll establish specifically for my personal brain. To answer the question about fonts, yes, you can absolutely change the you know, and I'm trying to think of where that is, but I don't want to sort of just to hunt for that. But yes, you absolutely can change the font color and the font itself, but I don't want to.
Sure, and that's fine. And just for those of you who have you know, some of these questions, this week, every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, we do have the Personal Brain 101 class, which is designed to cover kind of all the basics. So if you are just getting started and now your imagination is fueled by what you've seen in Christopher's brain, there's plenty of resources, including a recording of our Getting Started, and every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, we do have those Getting Started, so we can cover that there. Christopher, we also had a couple other interesting questions in terms of what inspired you to create the Harry Potter brain, and then just on a different note, but I'll let you kind of answer along with that, what are some of your favorite thoughts and areas within Harry Potter and your own personal brain as well?
Oh, that's so kind. What inspired me to do this was, again, my daughter. She's just an avid reader, and also she sort of introduced me to the world. And I wanted to create a brain that might have some global appeal. I wanted to create a brain. There's so many websites out there for Harry Potter, but there's nothing that really sort of, if you will, lays out the characters, the books. I mean, you could literally spend your whole life in this world, and luckily I don't do that. But so that's what inspired me. It was also, the inspiration was to do something together with my kid. You know, she's getting techie herself. In fact, you know, if we were able to work out so I could yank her out of summer camp today, she would have been here on the phone with me, and she'll just be heartbroken that I had to do this without her. But so that was it, sort of creating that connection. My favorite parts of the Harry Potter world itself that I've created here, I really like the books. I love the fact that I can have the full, basically the full graphics of a book cover. Here you'll see that, I'm not sure I pointed this out, but when I click on the image of the Deathly Hallows, you'll see a number 4 on the right-hand side here. That means that there are 4 attachments. And so one of the things I really love is seeing what the covers of different worlds, different countries look like. And this is the Russian cover for Harry Potter. And it's just an amazing piece of artwork. And I love the fact that what we've done here is created a digital history of this world. And it's just pretty amazing. I like that. I also like the character side. In other words, you're dealing with humans that also have actor equivalents. So, you know, how do you show, it's a challenge, how do you show, this is Severus Snape, who, see my vampire picture, I'm kind of a Snape fan. Where is his picture? And then Alan Rickman, you know, you link out, it's a jump thought, it makes sense, because Alan Rickman is not under Severus Snape, and he's not sort of above, he's sort of a jump, and these are some other movies that he's attached to. And my dream, and sort of where I'm going to take this, is to sort of see how other people create their Harry Potter worlds, or quite frankly, the business continuity world, and link them together. I'm really interested in the merging of brains and the sort of linking out to these other worlds. And so that hopefully answers that.
That does, and that I think you sort of touched on this issue, but I'm going to ask this question explicitly. It was a question from Bill Cruz, who asked, Christopher, how do you go about deciding whether a relationship like actor to character should be a jump thought rather than a parent-child relationship? So kind of a question about how you've made, what types of decisions you've made in terms of thought relationships within your brain.
That's a great question. I think that's a personal preference. So with regards to the characters, sometimes it's really easy to sort of create these categories. So underneath the characters, we broke it out into humans and non-humans. And then whether you create a jump thought or not, I think the way I do that is that I think about, what do the children have in common? And for things like, how would I put the actors in? So obviously, the actor who plays Minerva McGonagall, Maggie Smith. I mean, I could decide to make her a child, right? But I don't think that that's right, because what I've done here also is I actually use it. I sometimes think about the children from the standpoint of a family tree. So let me give you an example of that. So under the Malfoys, I actually wanted to show the relationship of these different people. So Lucius and Narcissa sort of spawned the Slytherin Draco, who then spawned Scorpius, and then Draco is played by Tom Felton. I think that just makes a little more sense to me, but I could see that could actually work the other way as well. Parent-child is usually pretty straightforward. Jump thoughts are things that are related somehow, but aren't directly sort of what I would consider a jump thought. I know that's a tough answer, but it really depends on what makes sense to you and how you do it. And in this case, you can see I'm also linking in, so this is if you will, the Malfoy sort of family tree. I actually have I'm so excited. There's some Harry Potter people out there. I actually have the full Noble House of Black family tree, which I think is really cool. So you can use it as a way to sort of show the family tree. I think you saw some of that when I was showing you the business continuity piece with regards to ICS, Incident Command. So this is an example of where I'm actually using the tool to show the relationship, right? This is actually the relationship of these people with regards to the chief executive officer. You can also do that with organizations. There are places where I know the director, and I know who reports to the director, and it's a great way to sort of show, where that's linked. So it really just depends on the situation you're dealing with.
That's great. And then Christopher, we have a question from Donald Brown about how long it took you to develop your structure. He doesn't specify what brain, so I guess maybe for both your Harry Potter and your business continuity brain. And then he adds, 6 months into this, I still keep changing shape for me. Also, do you attach to any third-party databases or, I guess, intranet sites or within your own? I guess that would probably be related to the business continuity brain.
I do. Okay, so how long did it take? I can tell you that the Harry Potter brain did not take long at all. I mean, literally the entire structure, separate from the images. The images are what takes a little longer because you want to find the right one. I mean, there's so many out there, but you want to find the right one, and you also want to, make it as clean as you possibly can. I think it's really important that it doesn't look, that you don't use this brain arrange thing too much because you can really get kind of wonky about that. So literally the Harry Potter brain took, literally my daughter and I did it over for a weekend. I basically put her in front of the computer and I said, okay, characters. And she literally could rattle off all of the human characters and I had to create the sort of categories. My personal brain, the disaster recovery brain, this is actually my personal brain. So this is a brain that I've developed over the past probably 6 years. But I can tell you that it literally takes me less than 5 minutes to actually create something that has some substance to it. A nice way to tell that is sort of, again, go to utilities and stats. because it'll give you a sense of how many thoughts and how many links. I really just recently discovered the whole idea of thought types and you know, how to mass select. Those were just big time savers for me. And I hope, and you know, as you all sat in on this webinar, that I've been able to share some of that with you to sort of get you up to speed. Don't get frustrated. It's a really great tool. It's not going to blow up on you. There was one time where I was having some weird connections, and so all I did was I ran the utility rebuild, and that fixed it right up. But again, use the forums. The other thing is you asked about external links. Because I'm a business continuity guy, I tend not to depend on, you know, sort of those external references. One way to really see that is to use your report feature to basically show where your external links are. I don't really link out to, I know what you're asking, sort of link out to a live database of some sort. I typically don't do that. Sometimes I'll link out, like you saw, I had a YouTube link. Sometimes I'll do that, but that's really more for, if I didn't have that link, it would not be a big deal. I know that, you know, folks do that, but I typically don't do that. I want to keep it self-contained.
Okay, and speaking of links, Christopher, Karsten B. had a question. If we can quickly, again, show how to link, and he doesn't specify whether it's a file or a web page, but showing how to link a file or a web page to a thought again. Just a repeat of that.
Absolutely. So in the world of Harry Potter, I'll go to online resources. In this case, what I'll do is I will actually search using the web search button, and I'll actually look for a picture. I want to be careful because you never know what you're going to get on the web. Let's just do Harry Potter. And even then, that can be a little daunting at times. So here, what I'll do is I've taken most of these, as you can see. Let's do Order of the Phoenix. I'll go to that site, and actually even before the site is there, I can actually just take this and I can drop it straight in. And it's created this link here. And then you can go in, double-click on that, and then rename this, whatever you want to name it. And then you also see that the URL is actually embedded there. Okay? So now you click on it, and the web is working. It will basically launch that site for you. So quick and dirty. Drop and drag. You can also do that directly from the attachment screen. I mean, you can, if I said online resources and I said add attachment, you've got this option here to link to URL. Right there, you can just type in the URL if you want it, and that will give you the access to that as well. Really, really nice use of the technology. The other thing is really neat. When you embed and when you drop in, actually whenever you attach a URL to it, it takes the text, you know, the label text from the site itself. So here I'm just mousing over the official J.K. Rowling site, and on her website, you know, the site text actually says Harry Potter and more, and that populates within this label area within the properties and text. I thought that was really cool. And that is for.
Hello, Christopher?
Yep.
Looks like, okay, your sound was cutting out. I think the GoToMeeting's getting a little tired on us, so we missed the line dropped for just about I would say this time 30 seconds. So could you just repeat the last 30 seconds of what you just said? Sorry about that.
That's okay. So that's the what I was going to say is with the online resources is you drop those resources into your Plex. It takes the web text and puts it in under the label, basically fills that in for you, which is a really nice feature because often you want that. What I like is situational awareness. I like to have a lot of information sort of at my fingertips. And so it would be nice to know that this was, obviously about Harry Potter and more. So, and the process is exactly the same with adding URLs from the attachment. So here I could actually link to a URL. You could type the URL in, and that would add the attachment. That would add the web presence as well. You could do multiple sites through the same thought. But I tend to keep things single. I tend to keep things one at a time because I don't really like to navigate too deep when I'm looking at.
Okay. Yes, sorry, and it's a little bit spotty, but we're actually on the hour. Christopher, real quick, how are you doing on time? We do have several more questions. Do we have a couple more minutes for Q&A, or assuming our audio holds out on the GoToMeeting, that is, of course.
Yep, I'm perfectly fine.
Okay, great, good. Just real quick to everyone, there have been a number of questions about comparing Personal Brain to other mind mapping tools, and I'll just say that if you go to blog.thebrain.com, I've been blogging quite a bit about traditional mind mapping software and how we differ. So feel free to email me if you want, feature comparisons, and I'm happy to point you to the information we have out there on moving beyond hierarchies in standard, moving beyond standard mind mapping. I don't know if you have anything to add on that, Christopher, if we should jump to the next question.
I've used a couple of different tools that usually are centered around brainstorming and clustering and sort of teaming. I have also found that some of the client server-based tools are very cumbersome and that they're very proprietary. I can't really, again, I use it for business continuity. I need to be able to take it to any machine. Obviously, I need the Personal Brain software, but I can get that. But the issue is I can't depend on having a specific version of an operating system and a client server-based tool. I've also find that the interfaces tend to be either very Windows or very Mac. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I need a universal interface. I need something that I can actually, again, literally put in front of my daughter, and in no time at all, she can just create the categories and just start to populate it. So I've used a number of different tools while I was teaching, and I typically come back to this one. The other part of that is I was showing this to my team at CIS, Anand and Mike, earlier, actually last week. And they were literally blown away. I mean, we were working through some pretty complex organizational structures with some database design that we were looking at, and they were like, whoa, and that's the reaction I want when I show someone sort of the relationship tool and sort of the building of something. I want that to have kind of a wow factor, and there aren't too many tools out there that I've seen that really compare to something like this. I mean, I know that they're out there, but I just haven't seen them.
Okay, great. And then this is a comment that we had from Michael Singer, an idea to use the brain as a genealogy tool for a family to collaboratively create a family tree, and the Harry Potter has inspired him to do that, and he's said that is a brilliant use case. So just a comment there. And then a final question from Victor. It's about updating your brain, and I'll just read the question to you. How do you make sure your brain gets updated, not technically, but I guess Victor is concerned that the more complex you have, does it get more difficult to update in terms of remembering what new thought to add or update, and how do you keep your brain updated, and if you have any other practical experience that you can share with our users on that, that would be great.
It's a great question, and actually going back to the genealogy piece, I think it's a terrific tool for that, and I mentioned I don't really want to share it because there's some personal information with regards to some of the folks I work with. But basically, I've used it to show the director and the managers, et cetera. So organizational structure, taken to a family level. With genealogy also, there's a lot of documents. There's a lot of research on the web. So that would be terrific, and I would love to see that. The second question with regards to the updating. Again, I use it every day, and I think, Shelley, I'm not sure if you're the one that came up with this term, but someone from the personal brain came up with the term of gardening, sort of gardening your brain. And that is...
Oh, right. That was Jerry, actually. Yeah, Jerry Mikulski came up with that.
There are definitely times where I will basically take huge sections of my brain, and I'll just completely forget them. So after this seminar, what I'll probably do is take this test thought, and I will control-click, and I'll forget this thought. Now, again, remember that in the brain you've got two levels of delete. One is forget, which means, yes, I don't want to see it. But then, if you really want to get rid of this thing, you can then basically delete the forget thought, the thought that's forgotten. I can go back to forgotten thoughts and sort of show where I've forgotten them, and that's really great. So but there are times where I will just completely get rid of stuff. And I'll just go through and navigate, and I'll prune, and that's where the wander function comes in. I'm going to wander my Harry Potter brain a little bit because I think that's a little more interesting. And what happens there is that basically you're just wandering your brain, and then as you glance over, you'll see, that's no longer good, or that's not a good link, or that's not really something I want, and then you will just start to hone and prune and keep it up. It really isn't that hard to keep it up. The thing I like, a couple of things, when you do the search, let me just stop this for a second. Let's say I had potions, and I can't think of another potion, but I'm just going to make one up. Let's call this the learning potion. Actually, no. I'm going to call this the sleeping potion again. You'll see that I actually have sleeping. So the fact is that when you add children, if there's an existing thought that matches the typing you're doing, it's a great way for you not to enter the same thought twice, and that's really important. You can also obviously hone it by saying, okay, show me, go to reports. I use reports all the time, so I want to know where all my JPEGs are. I want to know where all my PDFs are, right? And where are they in here? I want to sort them, and I want to navigate to those, right? So because I need to be able to hone that. A lot of my maintenance sort of takes care of itself because, again, and I'm sorry to repeat this, I embed those documents in my brain. I don't like having to worry that, if I move a file on my desktop, that it's going to shift on my brain. And I know that, you can make that work, but that's too much of a headache for me. I like to just bring them straight in. The bottom line is it's disk space. So, disk space is easy. I mean, I literally can carry both of these brains on a single USB. And, that's nice.
And Christopher, there have been a couple questions and discussions on the forum, and I'm not sure if you even use your brain for this. Do you, a number of attendees have asked if you use your brain for GTD, the whole getting things done methodology, if you have anything on that in your brain.
Oh, my goodness. I do. GTD, Gary Swinger is a guy who obviously works as a GTD. This is my GTD under reference. And again, I've used the comma tool so that this is all my reference stuff for GTD. Everything from the GTD brain sample, that's actually a link to the personal brain site. The workbook, I got a PDF version of Getting Things Done Fast, so I use this all the time. Again, embedded into this. Even things like the Gary Swinger site, which is terrific for those of you that are getting things done. You'll notice actually here, I haven't really pointed this out, but under my notes, I use the notes a lot so that I here's my morning review of sequence of events. This is actually lifted straight off of the Gary site, but I'm sure he wouldn't mind. You can link straight into his site. So absolutely, I use it not only for just referencing material, I actually thought of creating a brain that really followed that that structure, but it doesn't really work for me. I mean, I tend to use GTD. I have the hipster PDA. You know, my friends sort of laugh at me. Okay, here's this high-tech guy, and he carries around literally a stack of 3x5 inch index cards, and he calls it his hipster PDA. But I can tell you, along with this rotating pen thing, it's kind of a nice sort of collection tool. So yes, I use GTD all the time. Thank you for asking.
I guess maybe I don't know if your brain wandered there, but there was just a slew of GTD questions right about in the end and going there, so I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I guess somebody must have seen something in your brain.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to talk about GTD. I love that system. I mean, it's really a great way for, I mean, me personally, but also I use the brain. Literally, if there's anything that I need to put my hands on in terms of reference material or ideas or websites, that will go into my personal brain.
Okay, and actually Glauco Curetti, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing this name correctly, actually is asking what is GTD. So maybe for the users who are not familiar with that methodology, you could just give us a quick definition of what that is, and of course we've seen how you.
GTD is an acronym for Getting Things Done. It is, in fact, let's do this. Let's go out to the web and just search David Allen. David Allen is the guru. David codes his site, and in fact, what I'll do is it basically is a methodology of quite frankly, managing your life and your work by tackling things in a very sequential manner over 5 separate phases. I'm completely oversimplifying that, but what I'll do here is I'll actually drag and drop this website straight into my Plex, and that way we can go straight to David Code. It's a great way. It started with a book called Getting Things Done, and there's a workbook associated with it, which you can also buy off of David's site. And it's just a matter of getting things done, quite frankly. I'm sorry to use that pun.
Okay, great. Well, we are going over time quite extensively, so I want to thank you for taking the extra time, Christopher. I think we're going to wrap things up. Again, for those of you that have additional questions, feel free to email support and join us on our 101s every Friday. We'll be happy to cover these and I'll be happy to feel free to email me questions. Before we end our session, Christopher, are there any other areas in your brain that you want to take us to, or any sort of final words of wisdom to both new and seasoned personal brain users that you'd like to pass on to the group?
I think, this has just been a really fun session for me. I mean, I am excited about seeing other people's brains. I know that sounds a little weird, but, I think I would encourage folks to really become active on the online forums. I've also given you my email address, and thank you again for attending today. In the future, I guess one of the things that I'm looking at, and I mentioned this just a couple of times, I'm looking at how brains can be merged and shared. But I'm also looking at how the brain sort of ports to a handheld space. I like to work on both the handheld side as well as the big sort of screen side. And I think that the tool will transport well and migrate into those areas. I'm really also, I'm taking it on as kind of a pet project of mine with this group out of University of Michigan in terms of business continuity and public and private partnerships. And I really am trying to show people the personal brain and use it from a business continuity perspective. And again, as I get that business continuity site up and running using the personal brain, I will make sure that's advertised on the personal brain site. So again, thanks for attending the session. You've got the contact information, and if there's anything I can answer afterwards, just email me. Thanks again, Shelley, and your team.
Okay, well, thank you. And just a final note, a lot of you have been asking about whether or not this session is recorded. It will be recorded. The recording should be out by tomorrow. Feel free to email me about that. It will be on thebrain.com/recordings. So we do try and record most of our events, so we'll be able to get that out to you. And again, thank you so much, Christopher, for your time and letting us peek and peer and navigate around into your brain. And we'll look forward to seeing what you post next on our discussion boards.
My pleasure.
Okay, thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.